Because at the Bitcoin conference, the world's largest asset manager, BlackRock, just dropped a massive Bitcoin portfolio allocation. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be running the numbers to see what would happen to the price of Bitcoin if the entire world tried to copy what BlackRock just recommended in this video.
Portfolios, as you note, in February of this year, so just about 3 months ago now, added Bitcoin as an allocation in the 1 to 2% range. And this was a model portfolio that includes alternatives in it. And so that was, as you note, I think a significant development. That was not a sudden reaction to any one thing. That was a result of multiple years of analysis and research by that team who run.
All right. BlackRock right now is openly saying you need a 2% allocation to Bitcoin, and they are not the asset, well, they're not the only asset allocator around the world, making really bullish predictions and portfolio recommendations for Bitcoin. Before we get to looking at Charles Schwab, another multi-trillion-dollar asset manager, and their 10% Bitcoin allocation, I want to put things into perspective for you guys. So the chart we're looking at, this is going to be showing us all of the money in the world. And it gives us a good comparison and visualization to show you just how early it is in Bitcoin. So the chart I want to show you is this one right here. We can see Bitcoin. Look at how small it is. Can you even see it? Well, you can't because it's lumped in with that dirty word called cryptocurrency. But you can see how small that little portion of that pie is. Then you have a look at all of the currency in the world. This is the physical currency. This is just banknotes. There's obviously a lot more money digitally, so to say. Have a look at gold. Right now, gold is at around 18 or 19 trillion dollars in market cap last time I checked. We got the billionaires, we got central banks, we got the S&P 500, then we've got the global money supply, about $50 trillion. And we got global stocks, also somewhere around that $50 to $100 trillion market cap. Global debt, 300 trillion. Look at who's the biggest holder of global debt. In the pink there, governments. And of course, when we see governments in debt, what does that mean? Well, that actually means you're in debt when you think about it, because how's the government going to pay back their debt? They're going to steal your money. They're going to raise taxes on you. And guess what else they're going to do? They're going to print money to devalue the money and pay back their massive debt with the devalued dollars. And what's that going to do to you? It steals your purchasing power. Again, if you got money in the bank, say you got $1 million, that's 1% of your little local economy. If the government just doubles the money supply, your $1 million in the bank, it's no longer worth 1%. It no longer buys you 1% of the goods and services in your little local economy. It's now been diluted down to 0.5% of the money in your local economy. That's the two ways the government's going to steal your money, because they're in debt. You can see it openly in pink. Have a look at how big that government debt portion is. It's absolutely huge. So when we start talking about BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, recommending a 2% allocation to Bitcoin, this is huge. And before I even talk about real estate, again, let's recognize the fact that this is not news. BlackRock has been telling its clients for some time now, hey, a 2% allocation in your Bitcoin portfolio, this is probably something you should be doing. This was, again, December 2024. So what was their intentions to come back out at the Bitcoin conference and reaffirm their stance to Bitcoin? I mean, it's interesting that BlackRock right now has become one of the largest holders of Bitcoin on the entire planet. Have a look at that massive big, I think that's a blue bar. That's the amount of Bitcoin held by iBit in the blue. 527,000 Bitcoin. And I'm pretty sure they've got even more right now at the time of this recording. They're one of the biggest holders of Bitcoin in the world. They hold about 3% of the total supply. And this is where, again, this kind of relates to what we were just talking about a moment ago with the supply crisis. Okay, BlackRock holds 3% of the Bitcoin supply. Michael Saylor just recently announced his plans to go out there and buy another $840 billion of Bitcoin. if successful, that would take his Bitcoin stack up to somewhere around 1.3, 1.4 million coins. It's a lot of Bitcoin. Michael himself would have somewhere around 6 to 7 to 8% of the total Bitcoin supply. BlackRock nearly has 3% of the total Bitcoin supply. We now have two entities with 10% of the Bitcoin supply. Then we've got other entities like Satoshi Nakamoto squatting on 1 million coins. Are you guys starting to extrapolate out these numbers that we're beginning to see here? All of a sudden, my whole thesis is that we're going to be left fighting over the final 1.4 million Bitcoin. Again, I've been writing about this since 2021. I strongly believe that this supply suffocation trend is going to continue, and it's only a matter of time before it accelerates. I mean, let's be honest, it has been accelerating for some time now. Now, a lot of people called me an absolute nut job when I was writing about this in 2021, saying this is going to be the catalyst to break all of the Bitcoin cycles. At the time, it was the stock to flow. At the time, it wasn't popular to bash on the stock to flow model. Now it's obviously the Bitcoin power law model. Again, I never liked any of these models. But again, way back in 2021, I wrote this and I said the catalyst to Bitcoin's final cycle is the supply suffocation, and it will be adopted like a technology. You can see how technologies get adopted in these exponential curves. And why is that? That's purely because of the supply suffocation. For the first time in Bitcoin's life, more and more supply is flying off of exchanges. This is a fundamental shift which began in March of 2020 that appears to be a great inflection point. Again, I wrote this in 2021. I said this is the inflection point, March of 2020. There's the big green box. You can see it. Zooming in, we can see nearly 300,000 coins have flown off the exchanges over the past 3 months alone. Now we've actually had now we've gone into the future a few months. 1 million Bitcoin have left the exchanges since that inflection point of March 2020. And I think this is the most underappreciated aspect of Bitcoin today. I think the news is absolutely boring. But I think the news that continues to come out day after day after day, it's affirming the fact that Bitcoin's a different asset in the 2020s. And I think the biggest risk all Bitcoin holders have today is the fact they think Bitcoin's the same asset. They think 2020s is the same as the 2010s. They think the price of Bitcoin in the 2020s will reflect and act the same way that it did in the 2010s. And I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to continue spreading it. I don't think everybody is prepared for what Bitcoin is going to do next. JP Bunny, in your opinion, what will the price of Bitcoin be in 20 years without considering inflation? In other words, the real value of Bitcoin compared to the current 2025 US dollars. So again, this is a free article. You can find this article online. I don't want to feel like I'm shilling it. Encourage you guys to read it. In this article, I did the maths. I'll even show you. Let's walk down. I'll show you the calculation. I did what I thought was a conservative estimation in this article way back in 2020. I said, all right, moon math, Bitcoin's total addressable market. I essentially said, look, there's $900 trillion of money in the world. If we're going to calculate any maths, we need to use this. I called this the multiplier effect way back in 2021 because that's the name of this image on Willy Woo's website is the Bitcoin market cap gain per dollar invested. And I said, all right, let's run some maths. My simulation, I said, what would happen if half of the world's wealth flow into Bitcoin? When you assume a multiplier effect, that gives you $64 million Bitcoin, today's dollars. Again, I know some people don't think Bitcoin can capture half of the world's wealth. Let's call it 10%. What happens if 10% of the world's wealth wants to flow into Bitcoin? $90 trillion. Well, let's use the multiplier effect. Because what's interesting is when I first started writing about this, you'll notice something really interesting. Let's take a peep. The multiplier effect was only 2.6. Do you see that? Willy Woo and Dylan LeClaire both have great models showing that for every $1 that enters the space, it actually has a 2.5 to 3 times multiplier effect on Bitcoin's market cap. Interesting. Well, now let's have a look at the chart. Let's have a look at the data. Now we can see the multiplier effect today is up around 6x. 5.8. It's at an all-time high. So things have wildly changed, haven't they, in the past 4 years? So again, let's run the maths. Let's do the numbers. Let's be conservative. 10% of the world's wealth wants to flow into Bitcoin. Using our 6x multiplier effect, you got $90 trillion of demand for Bitcoin, times by 6, the multiplier effect. And we have, quick maths tells me that is that 540 trillion? Okay, so we've got $540 trillion market cap. Yeah, I think that's correct. Ooh, maths on a live stream was under pressure there. So a $540 trillion market cap. Now you can divide by 21 million coins. You're looking at a price tag for Bitcoin. Is that somewhere around 20 million a coin? 22, 23? Someone in the chat, let me know what the exact maths is. I'm going to do it for you guys live. Let's see where we're at. But again, $23 million a coin under an incredibly conservative estimation. 540 divided by 21. I'm going to beat you guys. $25.7 million Bitcoin. So that's if just 10% of the world's wealth flows into Bitcoin. So that was a long answer, but there's your maths, JP Bunny. That is where I think Bitcoin will be. And that's incredibly conservative. If you enjoy the incredibly conservative maths estimations, thank you for your participation. And if you do want to excite the YouTube algorithm, we would love a smashing of the like button down below. And again, make sure you subscribe. I keep telling you guys, I am dropping what is probably the most craziest and the most bullish interview of all time in a matter of days, maybe even tomorrow. It's with British Hodl, Peter Dunworth, the two most bullish people on Bitcoin, and it's a three-way bulltard fest. It's it'll be great fun. So again, make sure you subscribe for that if you are not, because that will be pretty big. And again, this is the maths nobody understands. Passionate about crypto absolutely nails it here. 115 years left to mine 1 million coins. Yeah, that's the maths. It doesn't check out, does it? It really just does not check out. It's happening a lot quicker than most people think. And there's not a whole lot of time left. I think there's less than 2 years left. That's just me. I think 2030 is kind of like that next big inflection point that I have. I think that's kind of when our chances to buy Bitcoin, things are going to be really different by 2030. Oh no, Sinister, my friend. Sinister lost some Bitcoin to Celsius. Again, Celsius is an exchange that I don't want anybody to lose Bitcoin to. Do not trust Celsius with your Bitcoin. Don't trust any exchange with your Bitcoin. Okay? This is why I always encourage you guys to check out the Bitcoin Well. They're an exchange that encourages you to self-custody your Bitcoin. So if you do want to buy some Bitcoin from the Bitcoin Well, there is a link down below for you guys to check out. I think they're the best. I think it's simple. I think they're the best Bitcoin exchange in the space. Again, if you're buying Bitcoin, they even give you tokens to go into the draw to win more Bitcoin over there on the Bitcoin Wishing Well. So again, it's kind of it's a gamified way to buy Bitcoin, give and get rewarded in Bitcoin. So I highly encourage you guys to check out what the Bitcoin Well is doing. And again, please don't leave your Bitcoin on exchanges. If you have Bitcoin exchange, just take it off the exchange. Go put it in a hardware wallet. There's a ton of great Bitcoin only options out there for your hardware wallet needs. Once you've got your Bitcoin in a hardware wallet, I always encourage you guys to check out Stampseed as well. Again, you can get these titanium plates from Stampseed that are specifically made for your Bitcoin 12 or 24 words. They should not be written down on paper. Okay. Generational wealth should not be backed up on paper. It's just not a secure way to store something that is generational wealth. Again, check out the titanium plates from Stampseed. As you can see, these puppies, they are strong. They are battle tested. They are fireproof. They are floodproof. They are life proof, and even gringo proof. You guys can get 15% off anything you want to buy from Stampseed with that promo code Luke15. Again, everything you need for both those guys is linked down below, so check it out. Passionate Crypto makes a really great point. We've got 115 years left and only a few million Bitcoin left on exchanges. What happens next? Again, I told you guys what I think happens next. I think we're going to see a mad scramble for the final Bitcoin. I think the race is accelerating. I think retail, again, this kind of goes to my base case. My base case is retail stays asleep for the next 5 years, and Bitcoin's at $10 million a coin, and global Bitcoin adoption is less than 5%. This is just how it's going to play out. And again, I don't want this to happen. This is why I'm making the videos every day, trying to wake retail up, shake them by their shoulders. Come on, wake up, buy some Bitcoin. Don't trust damn Celsius. This is why I make so many videos, because I genuinely think it's going to happen much quicker than most people think. I just haven't seen anything that has changed that opinion that I've had for the past 5 years. Bitcoin's going to be worth tens of millions of dollars a coin with 5% global adoption. The masses are asleep. You can see it. They're asleep at the wheel. We're at $100,000 Bitcoin, and they are as interested in Bitcoin as they were back in 2019 when it was $3,000 a coin. That's what this chart is showing us. Search trends for Bitcoin is at 21. It was also in 21 way back in 2019. Come on, man. They're too busy watching the game or watching the bread and circuses. They don't understand that there's only 1.4 million Bitcoin left. Come on, guys. I get frustrated sometimes. I apologize. Oh, I actually have a video for you guys coming about compounded growth. So stay tuned for that. I will say it is redonkulously bullish. It is really insanely bullish. I'm never selling either. Well, there could be a time to sell. I will say that. Maybe, just maybe. I do also believe 0.1 Bitcoin will be life-changing. Papa Marty, that is a great point. It's all because of this chart here. This explains why 0.1 Bitcoin will be life-changing. Because if we're even mildly correct, and if even 10 or 20% of the world wants to store a chunk of its assets in Bitcoin, BlackRock's saying 2%. All of a sudden, I don't think you're going to need that much Bitcoin to retire. And I do think 0.1 Bitcoin is going to be life-changing. I've actually ran multiple different simulations and calculations with multiple different Bitcoin retirement calculators to figure out exactly how much Bitcoin will be life-changing and when it will be life-changing. I'm going to put a link to a recent video I did where I broke that down in a 20-minute deep dive. And that video is going to be linked somewhere up over there. You click on that, it's going to take you straight there. And I'm even going to put an interview with my most recent guest on the channel, Peter Dunworth, where he broke down the maths for $7 billion Bitcoin. Believe it or not, I know it sounds crazy, but he's got the maths. I'm going to put a link to that video somewhere around there. Well, that said, guys, thank you so much to the 600 of you guys tuning in. I'll see you all in the next one.